Welcome to the Redvee TV Show, supported by Chapel House Cars for the 2024 season. Kevin, when we have nothing to talk about, we somehow managed to ramble for half an hour. This week we have got something to talk about.
I know. I'm dreading how this is going to go, though, because you didn't start with your trademark point towards the Chapel House side. So I don't know if that's a bad omen or what, but let's get going.
I'll just keep doing this for 30 seconds to get the money's worth. Chapel House Cars, proudly supporting Redvee. Right, anyway, we'll get straight on to the show, Kevin.
Yep.
Saints secure a tenant, but before we get to that, Lewis Dodd to depart and KR to come. Big news out of Australia, Kev. It's not yet been confirmed, but it looks pretty much nailed on. Lewis Dodd will be moving to the South Sydney Rabbitohs for the 2025 season. From all the talk we've heard, it's always been something he's had the ambition to do. And South Sydney have took a chance and are going to take him to the NRL next year.
Yeah, a great move for him. And it's one of those things that the NRL is probably the bigger and better thing with more eyes on it. So if he wants to go over there and test himself, good on him. Good on him for going out there and backing himself.
I do think he's got a great agent.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly so.
We've been vehemently, is that the right word, backers of Lewis Dodd, hoping he'll come good in a Saint shirt. Obviously, he's got the talent. Listen, Fred from Fingerpost, or Harry from Haydock, or Terry from Fatoif, I would suggest don't know as much about rugby league as an NRL scout about what it's going to take to make it over there. With all due respect.
Yeah, and people are allowed opinions, and it's good reading them. But it seems like I've been reading quite a little bit around it, like with regards to NRL, and they're saying there's a bit of a dearth of halfbacks, so they're taking the chance on having a look over here and seeing what's available over here. Dodd's the right age for him to still mould him into the type of player they want. I read one saying that he was used to playing in a kind of a triangle with a dominant 5'8", as they call it, and a dominant fullback, and kind of that's what they look for, just someone to organise. We've seen it with our own eyes when we've been sat along the touchline. How you can see him talking to people and telling people where to go and telling people what they're going to be doing next. Whether we agree with the tactics or whether viewers and commenters and all that will agree on the tactics that are then employed, I mean, that's up to the individual. But Dodd's doing the job that he's been asked of him. Yeah, it's as I say, it's a great move for him, and one that I don't blame him for making.
That said, Kevin, and although I've just said about NRL scouts probably know more than the vast majority of our fan base, they know more than us, I don't believe he's shown enough in a Saint shirt. We talked pre-season that he needed to be looking at Harry Smith at Wigan and needed to be better than Harry Smith at Wigan. I do feel there's been improvement there this season. But given that his initial 2 years is up at the end of the year and the 2-year option to stay was in his favour, will the club be terribly disappointed that we're not committed to another 2-year deal with him and it's a chance to shake hands and all move on?
Possibly, because you know what you're getting with him. Whereas now you've got to go and potentially recruit. And I keep thinking, like, we've got a ready-made 7 already at the club in Moses and Bai. So you've possibly got to go out and recruit a 9, or you're going to recruit a 7. So the club I think the club will be disappointed in that aspect, that they know what they're getting from Lewis. They know what he's capable of. And hopefully once he gets over these bumps, bruises, niggles that have kept him out and keep on just seemingly plaguing him a couple of weeks at a time, as well as the big injuries. You just think that I think the club would rather have kept him from a rugby point of view. You've not got to take a risk on someone. As you say, whether we've seen enough to kind of know that he can do it over there, only time will tell. And he might flourish over there. It might be perfect for him.
I'm sitting very much on the fence, and this is why I'm presenting both arguments here. Obviously, we hear a lot about George Whitby, who they believe is probably going to be the next off the production line, but he's a couple of years away. I know Paul Whelan said this week he's actually going to start training with the first team squad this summer. So maybe you're right. Would the extra 2 years for Dodd have suited the club? And then obviously in 2 years' time, you could then be making an option of which way you're going to go for 2027, as it would be, yeah. Whether you'd stick with Dodd long term or whether you'd replace him with George Whitby. As it is, we are now having to go into the market potentially for a half, and it could be careful what you wished for, because if you look at obviously a lot of the comments on social media with the news that Lewis Dodd's going to go, a lot of Saints fans were celebrating it. But what is out there to replace him with?
Yeah, this is going to bring us on to a good point. I actually saw someone with praying hands when he was injured and asking if he was out for the season with the set of praying hands. I mean, that to me is just, it staggers me. It's beyond belief that someone would want that. Listen, if you want someone dropped, absolutely fine. That's your prerogative. That's your opinion. But to wish injury on a player, on one of your own players, I mean, that just staggers me. I think it just shows a lack of intelligence from the type of people who are praying for him to be out injured. I just think it shows a lack of class as well.
We've got the Redvee flag up at the back of the West Stand, which says "Once a Saint, always a Saint." This is a player who kicked the point to give us the greatest moments in the club's history less than 18 months ago. And the abuse that some of our players get, and I'm going to have Paul Wellens into this as well, considering we're top of the table, is absolutely horrific. And it happens with Saints the minute we lose 1 or 2 games or we're not particularly playing that well. And people don't look at the bigger picture that we've lost the same amount of games as Wigan this year. We're top of the table. People say that's a false position. Is it? We've played 9 games. After 9 games, we've got the best defence in Super League, the second best defence statistically that Super League has ever seen. Attacking, quite right, we're stuttering and it's not great. And we need to get it solved and we need to look for solutions. But you'd think the world was ending.
Yeah, I think the key word that you've used there is abuse. Again, this is my opinion, but if you want to present an argument, you don't need to go down the abuse route with it. If you want to say, I don't think Lewis Dodd should play on Saturday against Hull KR, fine, absolutely fine, and you give your reasons behind it, and it's same as T. Ritson should start over John Bennison. Why? Because he's quicker, and we need pace in that back line. Okay, fair enough. It's an opinion. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, and I don't have to disagree with it. You can choose either way, but it's the abuse.
You can have an opinion of what you want, and I think we do the same. We have an opinion of what we'd like to see, but we'll also present the argument of what we're likely to see.
Yes, yeah, and that's it. It's the abuse, because I think Saints fans want something different to what Saints structure is. And yeah, you mentioned about the attack. The attack does need to improve. It does need to improve 100%. You can't keep relying on your defence to get you through a game. You need to start clicking, even if it's set moves, if it's just being that little bit quicker. But we play to the same game plan, so it doesn't matter if you put Lewis Dodd, doesn't matter if you put Jonathan Thurston in there. You're going to get the same type of kicks. Whether they are any better or any worse is completely subjective. So if Moses Mbai plays 7 on Saturday and he can put a kick in, it's going to be completely subjective if it's one of them containing kicks that we play. the false thing that we've had from the past couple of games is creating so much pressure against Hull, which I will maintain that I think I could pick 13 people out of the comments on our last video, and we'd give Hull a game because that's probably unfair on Hull, but they weren't great. They weren't organised. There were a lot of young lads who were properly struggling to kind of get a foothold in the game. They kept trying, but they just didn't make it. So, yeah, as I say, opinion is fine, abuse isn't.
You almost feel there's two default settings for Saints fans. We're either the greatest team in the world, or the world is about to end. We're never going to make the playoffs again. Everybody in the squad's not good enough. Get rid of everyone. But if we suddenly say there's a star name player going to leave who's 32, 33, it's like, why are we not keeping them? You're just not going to satisfy a section of our fan base, no matter what we do. Oh, and then Eamon McManus just needs to go and open his wallet, apparently, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. From a club that lost money last time they put accounts out, we need to go and put more money out there in a sport that seems to be very difficult to make money across the sports.
I think in the last accounts, Kev, and it was COVID related, I think for the period that it showed, we made a £1.2 million loss as a club. I think it was in the accounts. Now, obviously, that was with closed stadiums, other issues. That's going to hopefully have come down an awful lot. But we've also got, the club have got COVID loans that they took out to keep the club going, and that they were given that need paying back. Now, we're going to get onto it in a bit, revenue generators. But fans need to understand that, let's go and sign Mikey Lewis from Hull, Hull KR is the one you see. Well, first of all, Mikey Lewis has signed a new 5-year deal at Hull KR. He's a Hull KR lad.
He's not. He's a Hull lad. He's a Hull lad. He's an FC fan. He was a boiled FC fan.
But why on earth, if we go to Hull KR and say we want to sign him, and they go, nah, you're all right, we don't need to sell. We're building as a club. We don't want to sell him to you. Oh, by the way, he doesn't want to leave at the moment anyway. Why do we haven't got a divine right just to go and sign up? Like I've seen, let's go and get Mikey Lewis, let's go and get Harry Newman. And somebody made a wish list of about 5 different players, and you think it's absolute fantasy.
I think that it's easy to kind of do the fancy football type thing of picking who you want in the, as you say, with Mikey Lewis. One thing that people have got to remember is it's not what you think he's worth. So go and splash the cash. Well, how much you expected? £500,000. Well, what if Hull KR say, yeah, you can talk to Mikey Lewis, £2 million. That's the transfer fee we want for him, because we want it to cover the rest of his contract. We've got to replace him. And you know what? We want to make a start on that stand down the bottom end. And that'll be a lovely little way of doing that. It's not on what you think it is. It's on what the club... Now, is he worth £2 million? In rugby league terms, no. He probably isn't, because you don't see people going for massive fees. So, from a business perspective, our Saints going to chuck money at someone, and this is before we've even spoke about wages. Our Saints going to go and chuck money at it. It's an easy out to say, yeah, let's go and throw money at it. There's no sell-on fee, because you're not going to then get South Sydney coming in and going, well, we want Dodd and Mikey Lewis to play together. We'll give you $2.5 million and you'll make a profit on him. It just doesn't make sense.
What happens if you give $500,000 for Mikey Lewis? Give him a 4-year contract, and in 4 years' time, he goes, I'm going to the NRL.
Or, even worse, he comes to Saints and gets a bad injury first game up, doesn't really play, plays 10 games across his first year, 8 in his second year, and then has to retire.
Like Lewis Dodd. Like Lewis Dodd got a serious injury, and you could argue he hasn't been quite the same player since. Equally, again, I'll go back to George Whitby. He's the one that people talk about as coming off the production line. If you know he's going to be coming through in the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, why would you then go and spend £500,000 on a halfback? And listen, I'm pulling figures out there. Who would then block his progress?
Yeah, I mean, it's the balance of recruitment, retention, and promotion that the club is currently balancing. And it'll probably be a mix because, as you say, you've got George Whitby, you've got Will Roberts, who's the year ahead of him and has actually got a squad number this year. Um, I mean, Paul Wellens has actually mentioned recruitment, which we might get onto in a minute as well.
Yeah,
But
we talked about it, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about um, potentially have we retained players too long, but then equally, if you'd let people go earlier, you'd
yeah,
potentially don't have the success over the last 3 or 4 years.
yeah,
It's a very much a balancing act, and sometimes a squad does come towards the end naturally of its life cycle, and you need to start moving people on, which is like what we're likely to see with Tommy Makinson and the like. It's a really tough situation. It makes me think we're going to be in the market for, I call them a bridging halfback, somebody who will come over here, potentially do 2 years or so and fill a hole until we've got the people we want coming through.
well, it could do 2 or 3 years because obviously, even if they came over and did three, you've got Johnny Lomax, who may well be coming to the end of his career. Well, it is, unfortunately, Johnny, you're heading towards the end of the career. You're not just starting out. So you've potentially got that where you need someone just to bring the other youngster through and look after him. And if you're looking at a Hull KR halfback, I think the one that's been linked most currently is Jordan Abdul. He's the most likely of the Hull KR halfbacks that you're going to bring in. My issue with him is, does he get injured too much? He struggled this year at Catalan. He just seems to be another one who picks up injuries. But you've got to, I know you've got to take a risk on someone because obviously with Lewis Dodd going, you're out there and you're looking for someone to come in. Is that a nine? Because as well, if we're going for promotion, do we see any of our nines as ready to become backup hooker and potentially have to play 10 games in a row if Darryl Clark picks up an injury?
I wonder whether we'll bide our time a little bit and see what happens with the NRL during the season. If a halfback becomes
Yeah,
out of favour, who needs a little bit of a change, wants to come over
yeah,
and give them a go. I've put the salary cap spends on, Kev, for people who say we're skint. Uh, I'm not sure what logic they base it on. We spend the salary cap and over and above, based with obviously marquee players. Not quite as much as Wigan, but they've got a massive new backer who's come in. Not quite as much as Warrington, who again, really rich backer. But it doesn't mean our squad is any worse for spending 2.7 million. It just means we've been better with the finances and how we structure your marquees potentially. Um, Huddersfield Giants are probably the outlier there. Look a bit of a shock. To be where they are. And listen, you could be spending £2.7 million and be Leeds.
yeah. I think this is the thing as well. If we went out and signed Mikey Lewis and had to make him a marquee, so you get rid of someone, all of a sudden that wages are tied up. And I'm not just talking about salary cap, I'm talking about actual money that we are paying out. So if we went and bought a half on a big wage, which is, if you're going to go and try and get someone out of a 5-year deal, you're going to have to pay him big. If you do it, which Saints won't. Saints are not going to go after Mikey Lewis. But if we did, and then we ran with a back line of Wellesby, Ritson, Ben Davis, Mark Percival, John Bennison, half of our social media following, and I mean ours as in the club, would melt. It would absolutely melt.
Melt
Why
or
have we?
combust.
Well, implode. But yeah, it. You know what?
Like
It just
like a submersible.
like a submersible. Alarm bells would be ringing, wouldn't they? That we've pumped so much in. You've got to balance your squad. You've got to balance it. And I know Paul Wellens has made comments saying recruitment will be minimal in the in this season. There's two things that I want to point out on that, and that's one: Saints don't go around telling everyone their plans, because if you tell everybody your full recruitment plans, guess what? The players who are currently playing for contracts, no, Wellens doesn't like that term, but players who are playing for contracts are bothered about pulling the tripe out for your club if they're not going to get a new one. And it bumps up the wages of the players that you're going to be going hunting. And I think we'll go like for like. Secondly, we'll go like for like. So making some goals, we'll bring a winger in. We're going to have a scrum half or a hooker for Lewis Dodd, I think, because, as I say, Moses could fit back into 7. And you either need a, as you say, a bridging halfback, or you need a 9 to cover what Moses does. Possibly a replacement for Blake if we don't fancy him there. Connie's coming to the. Well, he's got a 1+1 in our favour.
I think Connie will get his option.
I do, because you don't want to change too many. But it wouldn't surprise me if we're not looking and just seeing what's about and what's available and who could be. And it might not be someone who's out of contract. It might be someone who's in contract, but isn't really seen as a proper main figure at the club.
You look at the market though, Kev. There's not a lot out there. There's not a lot of movement. Yeah. If you look at what I've said this for weeks, we're going to basically nail down their squad because they've realised there's not a lot out there. They're doing all right. We'll go with what we've got and we'll just make those players better.
Well, again, you go with like Connie. Connie might get his year as well because we've got Johnny Vaughan coming through. So Johnny Vaughan could be your next Connie on that side, not the same type of player, but your next Connie. And you've got to look at like the likes of your Ben Will, the likes of your Deon Sambu, the likes of your Harry Robertson, the likes of your, as we said, Will Roberts, George Whitby. You've got to get that balance right. And this is something I'm glad I'm not.
To understand, Kev, when these players come in, as much as we want them to hit the ground running, we hope they do. We could be in a little bit of a transition period.
Well, look at Blake this year. We brought someone in from the NRL because he hasn't started well and because he's got involved in other things. It's become a big issue, hasn't it? It's become a big issue, and people saying he's rubbish. And sometimes you can't really argue with people because you've not seen much from him.
Yeah.
If he was on a 2 or 3 year deal, people would be like, give him a bit of time. And I'm willing to give people time. I think I've said that to you privately, like when we've been going the game or whatever. But when you're on a 1 year deal, you really need to come in and really show why you want a contract back in the NRL or a contract as a Super League club.
At this moment in time, if it's a choice between giving Wonga X amount or thinking, do you know what, let's just blood Johnny Vaughan instead next season.
Yeah, I think the issue is we want someone like Will Hopoate did the couple of years before, which was when he was fit and available, he would play centre or wing for you and bring that steady head. And we want that kind of player who can cover a bit of both. We need speed in that back line, and we just need things to start clicking for us in that respect. And by clicking, I mean recruitment wise, because we'll get on to playing in a bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah. I think we've set the world to rights a little bit.
I think we've had a proper whinging. The one thing is, when we get like the comments and people will disagree with us, or they'll kind of take what we're saying and go in a slightly different direction with it. Great, good stuff. I like reading people's opinions because you are allowed opinions. It's just a case of I'm trying to base mine on not just typing or thinking the first thing that comes into my head, really thinking about, would I like to see Harry Newman at the club? Probably, yeah. Would I like to see Mikey Lewis at the club? Probably, yeah. Would I like... I can listen all these players, great. Are they going to come to the club? Nope.
Some of the revisionist stuff I've seen though, just before we move on, Saints haven't signed anybody. The recruitment's been terrible over the last few years. We haven't signed anyone. James Bell.
Curtis Sirenen. Yeah.
Mainstays of your team. Do people just like shut their eyes to the people we've signed who were good?
And I think another thing that I saw was people saying, I'd get rid of half a dozen 8 players and use their wages on someone else, contracted players as well. But if you'd have to pay them off. You pay them off, you've not got the money to pay other players.
Go back and find the episode where we put up all the contracts.
Yeah.
Right, moving on. Revenue generating Kev. Saints are going to be the landlords bleach of Liverpool FC Women.
You know what? This is a great, absolutely great move by the club. Means that we get a nice new pitch. Hopefully that's that comes in the summer. I think it's due to, isn't it? Be relayed in the summer in time for them.
Yeah, that's why. Obviously, I think in June we haven't got a home game.
Yeah.
Pitch is going to get dug up. We're going to end up with a Premier League pitch, basically. Listen, obviously, people know my football allegiances quite well. I'm delighted to say that Everton will be playing a game a year at the Totally Wicked Stadium.
So you can go boo him there as well.
Yes. But
will they though? Because Liverpool have said that they still want to play some games at Anfield. So
possibly, but do you know what? I can't dislike this move. It's absolutely fantastic news for the club. The whole point of having our own stadium, building our own stadium, owning our own stadium was to generate revenue for the club. And this is a huge, huge revenue generator. 10-year deal. So we've got certainty of revenue coming in. It means the stadium is getting used all year round on the field. You've got all the extras that are going to come from it, the hospitality, the revenue from kiosks. It's just all round good news, and everything from this feeds into making the rugby team better.
Yeah, it should do. It just enriches the club, and as you say, I mean, there's not much more I can add to that because, as you say, we built the stadium to generate our own revenue, to make it a potential venue that you can use every single day of the year, and you're not at the behest of anybody else.
Will I be going? No, but equally, I don't go to the training days when there's 200 million British gas fans outside either. So it is what it is. But you've essentially got one of the biggest footballing brands in the world now linked to the club.
Yes.
And it was interesting to note they've just used the St. Helens Stadium in all the press releases. Now, obviously, Totally Wicked sponsor the stadium at this moment in time. That deal is currently due to run until the end of the 2025 season. So you suspect if they want to renew that deal, it could potentially be a lot more expensive because the naming rights for the stadium, given how much it's going to be used, the fact that Liverpool women's team are quite often on television, those naming rights should be worth an awful lot more money for the club, which again, another secondary revenue booster.
Yeah, they should be. And I'm not sure on the legalities of being advertising it as a vaping brand with football. I'm not sure whether can they. Oh well, no. Blackburn Rovers have got Totally Wicked on the front of the shirt.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting to note, Kev, that on both the photo that has been used on the Liverpool website, and I hate to say that I have to visit it to go and look at that.
I wonder if if you've just zoomed in on the same bit of the picture that I have of the ground.
Yes.
And is it that black rectangle?
That is all I'll say. It's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. That black rectangle there that is covered just by the graphic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just had a look at that. We're not going to want to kind of anger or upset sponsors, but if we're getting in with one of, as you say, a big footballing brand that Liverpool Football Club undoubtedly are, we've got to then maximise that as much as we can. So if this becomes the AXA Stadium, Standard Chartered Stadium, but whatever it might be, and it means that we get money into the club because we've been able to go after them off the back of this 10-year deal. Fantastic for the club. If it means Totally Wicked are still sponsoring and are matching the likes of them, great, as long as the revenue is coming into the club.
Yes. But at the end of the day, money makes the world go round.
It does.
And equally, we're going to have a fantastic pitch.
Yeah.
So,
whether you like the brands who sponsor us or not, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, you can have your principles. You can say you don't like it, but at the end of the day, in a sport like ours, which is not really awash with cash, you've got to maximise everything you can.
yes. The only thing that I don't want the club to do, which they did a long while ago when Liverpool were playing at the club, was tweeting match updates off the official club account. Let's not go there again.
No, because I don't think they want us pestering them again. And I will say it again, because we did it last time and we will do it again.
Well done. Yeah, well done. I think it's a massive pat on the back to everyone in the back of the club off field who've got this over the line.
Yeah, I agreed.
Tell you one man who might get more business, Pete Emmett.
Good lad is Pete.
Good lad indeed. Hospitality is his middle name.
Yeah.
Right. Enough of them. I've gone and washed me mouth and my hands. Squad to face Hull KR this weekend, Kev.
Yeah, 2 changes. Tommy Makinson dropped out with a case of chicken pox, he tweeted the other day. So he's missing this week. Sam Royal also drops out with Lewis Dodd, who we may have mentioned once or twice earlier, coming back in. And the welcome return of Jake Wingfield to that 21-man squad as well.
Assuming everyone's fit, Lewis Dodd comes back in at 7. For me, John Bennison goes out wide to replace Tommy Makinson, Jack Wellesby to fullback.
I think that's what Wello will go with. Lewis Dodd coming back in just gives you, and the reason I would go with Lewis Dodd going back in, I would personally as well, my opinion. I think Wello will. I think that putting Lewis Dodd back in gives you that opportunity to have a little bit more at hooker. So that might be, when I say Lewis Dodd back in, I'm not necessarily saying starting either. I'm saying he might come off the bench because you could play him as a reserve hooker. He's done it before. But yeah, it just gives you a little bit more around them key positions, around them pivot positions. If you leave him out completely, I think you're leaving yourself a little bit short, especially at 9. I'm not one who's signing up to the thought of if Lewis Dodd is leaving, then he shouldn't play for us again. Like, again, I've seen on social media, mainly because then last year we wouldn't have seen James Roby because he was retiring. So why would you play him if he's retiring? You wouldn't have played Louis because why would you play him if he's retiring? You won't play anyone who's coming to the end of the contract and you're letting go. Just doesn't make sense as a thought process to me. Especially if you are going to bring in a new 7, you might as well play the one who's got number 7 on his back anyway.
Just to throw a little curveball in.
Yeah.
Swinton Lions have released their 21-man squad for this weekend.
Yeah.
And T. Ritson isn't in it.
Right. T. Ritson. This is probably, I think Wello will go with Bennison on the wing.
I do. And the reason I will give you for that is, if T's not got his chance up to now, why are you going to do it in one of your hardest away games of the year?
Yeah. I also think there might be a little bit of Bennison was playing against Huddersfield and got dragged off after half an hour. And I think that Wello said he felt sorry for him because it wasn't necessarily his fault. And it was just more a case of getting the balance of the rest of the team right. It wasn't that he'd done anything wrong. I think that this is probably now where T. Ritson in the next couple of games gets his chance, whether it's on Saturday or whether it is in the weeks down the line. I think if John Bennison gets picked and makes a big error at some point, I think this is where T comes in. I think it will probably be an easy switch to put him in on that right-hand side because he's more of a natural right winger, I think. That's where he's played for Swinton the past couple of games. He's got a bit of match sharpness. The little bits I've seen, he's looked all right for Swinton. He's carried the ball out well, according to one of the tweets as well. I was just looking for the tries, to be honest, on YouTube. But I think this is probably the closest that he's going to be over this next kind of 2, 3, 4 weeks.
I think whatever happens this weekend, I would play T and I'd give him a go against Castaway.
Yeah, I've just looked at the fixtures. Yeah,
Castaway, Leeds at home, and you see where he's at.
Yeah, I think you can do that. You can see where he's at, and I think this is where he has got to kind of stay focused. So even if he isn't picked in the 17 this week, I think from what Wello's said and the fact that we do need that pace in the team, it could be his time. I just think we Tommy missing out this week, it would almost be if it wasn't Hull KR away, it would almost be the perfect time to say I'm just going to slot him in on that right wing.
Okay, here's your tough call, Kev. I think you will agree with me and say Ben Davis, T. Ritson, Noah Stevens are the three who are going to miss out.
Yep.
Who's your fourth man?
Oh, it's an absolute cracker, isn't it?
Someone who's got a knock.
Yeah, it'll be someone with a knock. It might be Jake Wingfield because the way that Wello was saying, it's like he's a possibility and they were going to make a call after training on Wednesday. And if it wasn't this week, then it would definitely be next week. It does allow you to kind of shake things up when you're playing Castleford. So maybe it might just be a week too early for Jake, just based on what Wello said. But the one thing, before we get on to the Hull KR squad, no, it's fine. You could have left the graphic up, it's fine. But I want to see, against Hull KR, I want to see us be a bit sharper with the ball. I think there were little parts of the game where we tried getting it out wide or to the edges anyway, but it wasn't quick enough. It wasn't sharp enough. It lacked variety, and it didn't really hurt Huddersfield. So I'm hoping that we're doing stuff like having deeper runners coming in, because even like from loose forward, some of the passes that were made, they're made to your scrum half, and your scrum half's wrapped up because it's too slow. The ball out to him is just too slow. The play in front of it probably is as well. It's all a little bit telegraphed. So I want to see everything a bit sharper, not using James Bell as a crash ball, not using Matt Whitley as a crash ball, getting him running on the lines that he's good at. I want to see a bit of variation this week because Hull KR have got that edge, that kind of that bite and attack that we need to try and match. We need to. And they've only made one change. Tom Opajic comes back in for Reese Butterworth, the hooker.
I just want to start off by saying I've got an awful lot of respect for Hull KR and everything they are doing as a club.
Yeah.
I think the fan base is terrific. They get behind their team in big numbers. They're selling out every week, hence our limited away allocation at the weekend. They're building year on year. They're not trying to just splash the cash. There's a plan there. They've got a great coach in Willie Peters. And they're pretty much teetering, if not potentially inside that group of clubs now where your big clubs challenging for honours.
Yeah.
Well, they are challenging for honours.
They are challenging for honours, yeah. They've got a great squad. They've recruited well. They've been quite decisive when it's been going for players. You look at that team, and obviously they don't play number 6. That number's been retired. But you have a look, and they seem to be in pretty rude health. And then when you look at the numbers that are kind of the bigger end, you've got Tyrone May, who's your first probably your first choice 6, I'd argue. Somebody might put me right on that. And Joe Burgess, who's a 6'5" quick winger. There's a big call for leaving somebody out. It might be Gildart, who they leave out, because I think he took Kovačic's place last week. And they've made the very, very clever move of, while they gave Hiku the number 1 jersey, they've realised that it's not quite worked out. So immediately put Evalds back in there. So they're very clever with what, well, Willie Peters is very clever with what they do. Hull KR has always been kind of a difficult place to go anyway, but a good place because the fans know rugby.
You say that, and we always say that. I'm sure we've beat them on the last 10 occasions we've played them.
Oh, we got beat last time we played them.
Did we? Was that? Am I looking at last week's stats then? Sorry, I told you.
Yeah. No, we got beat last.
There you go, stats fans. Rubbish.
It was that mad, like the penalty that got given against Lussick because he'd been lazy getting back. Again, might be harsh on him, but he hadn't got back and got involved in the play, and we got beat over there. It might be one of those that we're seeing it as a. We also messed up with subs because I think Sam Rawle came off and then came back on again within a minute. It might always seem like it's a tougher place to go, and if you look back 10 years, we've beaten more often than not. It may well be the case, but I feel like, especially now, over the past couple of years, you don't go over there and get your own way over there. They are an absolutely formidable outfit who play rugby how you want to see it played, and have overtaken the city counterparts.
Oh, easily. And you know what? They're not an entitled fan base either.
We've always said I'd love to stand in that kind of, I'll call it the long side, opposite where the
like the old pop side, isn't it?
Yeah. Imagine being in there and getting that kind of old school atmosphere. I think it would be tremendous. This isn't the Robin Pod, by the way. But yeah, I've always found them to be knowledgeable fans over there. They've always kind of known the rugby, and yeah, they might be partisan. They might be saying that they're going to beat you when you're going to turn up.
It's what you should be.
Yeah, of course it is. Absolutely right.
But it's built on solid foundations as well. Obviously, their scholarship came to Saints the other night and went away with the victory. I think it was 24-14. There's a plan there. And you know what? Fans talk about wanting a Super League where every result is in doubt. Except Saints fans when we lose a couple and we're the worst team in the world. But that's going back to the first point. I'm looking forward to going tomorrow because I think it's going to be really tough. I actually don't think we're going to win tomorrow, but it's a contest. You hope,
yeah.
And either team on the day can win. That is why I follow sport. I don't want to go to a game where it's a walkover. So the more teams who are competitive, the better for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I always say exactly what you said there, that you want a competitive league. You don't want it to be the same teams lifting the pot. Well, I do. I want it to be Saints lifting the pot every year, but I want us to have worked for it.
Yeah.
Now, if you're trying to buy into the sport, why would you buy into a sport where you've just got 2, maybe 3 teams winning everything? You don't want that. You want that jeopardy. You want that excitement of sport. You want that our Hull KR are going to beat Saints. As you say, I'm not confident going over there. Absolutely not. Do I think we can beat Hull KR? I do think we can. Do I think we will? If we do, we've got to be mighty, mighty better in attack than we have been for the majority of the season.
Okay, I did beat us on the 14th of April last year, 26-14, the game you're on about.
Yeah, I remember it. I was there.
I'll just change my stat to say we've won 9 out of the last 10.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough. It just always feels like you're not going to get your own way over there, though. Like and I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just feel like they always make a game of it.
Yeah. So, Kev, prediction for tomorrow.
If our attack isn't any better, Hull KR win.
Yeah, I've gone Hull KR by 6.
Well, you actually giving what you've actually done here.
Yes.
Let me have a look at what I did.
But I'll go back to what I was saying the other week when I put up the next 10 fixtures. I thought we'll win out. I think we'll win 8 out of 10. And the 2 that are in doubt, which can go either way, are Hull KR away and Wigan away. Those are the games that can go either way. If we come out on top tomorrow, we are well on track for where we need to be this year.
Yeah, I've actually done Hull KR by 12, so I'm even more of a pessimist. But honest as well. If I was going to be
and that's only because I'm quite near the top in the tipping comp and I can't afford to fall behind too much.
If I was more Mark Lawrence, I'd be saying Saints by 24, but I'm not.
I'd love to watch every episode of Redvee. This might be the first episode of Redvee where I've said we've going to get beaten in about 6 years.
Yeah, possibly. I know what I've said. To be fair, I think I had said not to give a prediction if I think we're going to get beat. I just say it's going to be tight.
Well, I've just forced you into it. Right, done and dusted. 3 o'clock kickoff in Hull tomorrow. An early one. Early morning wake-up call, rise and shine, on the road to Hull. Couple of beers to liven us up. Can't wait.
I hope not. You're driving.
Maybe I knew that, Kev. You can tell me what they taste like.
Yeah, I will do.
But back early enough to have a good few beers and hopefully celebrate Saints win or drown our sorrows. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll catch you tomorrow for the instant reaction. Catch you soon.